right, let's get it together. I've always had this like struggle with feeling like I would ever get married. I always saw myself as being someone who's just gonna be the cool auntie who just traveled the world and bought the kids cool stuff, bought my nieces and nephews cool stuff, and I was just going to be like um, living my best life, being single, doing what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I actually started. Um, it changed. It changed in two ways. When I first started like having serious relationships, I started to think about the idea of dating, but it would scare me so much. I mean, the idea of marriage would scare me because I wasn't sure I would be content or happy with that man, right? And so that was what I would tell myself. But what I was coming to realize is that I was just afraid. I was afraid of if I was going to be good as a wife. I was afraid of whether or not I was going to be faithful. Like, let's just keep it real. Like, faithful. Am I going to be good enough in this relationship? And so I had a lot of different things that were really making it, they were just really making it hard for me to see it as a possibility because I was so afraid of failing at it. I was afraid of failing at being a wife. And so things started to really take a turn, and I had to really be honest about it because I had a son. I got pregnant and I had my son. And so I now had to start to ask myself, okay, do I want to be a single parent? And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with being a single parent, but having grown up in a household with two parents, I wanted that for my child, who was not. I didn't know he was coming, but once he did, I knew that I had to start. I had to start thinking about things differently because I wasn't the it wasn't I wasn't auntie, I was mom. So that whole idea that I had in the first place is no longer a factor. So it really started to I really started to be honest about it in the beginning when I want to say maybe around 2018, maybe even 2017. I had a friend of mine ask me, and she asked like, do you want to be married? Like, is that something that you desire? And it was weird because I don't think that I had ever had someone ask me that question in the way that she did. It always felt like there was maybe pressure to say yes or no, depending on who it was. And so when she asked me, I thought about it and I was like, I do. And so she's like, well, why don't you start dating people with that in mind, like with that idea in mind? And so from that point on, I started to see where I was really struggling with that whole concept. So that was a few years ago when that first started. And then we're going to fast forward to this year. And this year, I feel like it was really, I had to really come to terms with the fact that I deserved I deserved the best, and that it would come, that person would come, that relationship will come, but I had to be willing to do a few things. So the first thing is that I had to be willing to let go of the control of whether or not this person likes me. And I mean, like, to the point where I would be obsessing over, and did they like me? Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? I would be so consumed with what they think, what he would think of, what he thinks of me. Did I say something? Did I make him feel uncomfortable? Did all of these thoughts that we could that a lot of us, especially as women, we can get into our heads about it, and we start to like give all of our energy, put all of our energy towards this man. Because I don't even want to say relationship because they're not even really relationships. Like, you know what I'm talking about. They don't really be relationships all the way. So I thought that was the first thing I had to come to terms with. And second thing was that, am I willing to let go of the things that are not, of the relationships that are not moving in that direction? And that meant that I had to take my time. The whole idea of trying to date multiple people did not work because my attention was split. Okay. And I was using them to fill like that empty space. So if one guy isn't picking up, that's okay because I know so and so is going to pick up. Or if I can't hang out with this person, that's okay because I know he's going to pick up or he's going to show up and do this. And so it was almost like a build a man mentality where I was trying to use these different relationships to fill these spaces. And what God really wanted from me this year is to make him the priority and make that relationship the priority. He wanted me to get to know him. He still wants me to get to know him as the lover of my soul. Like he loves me, and like in a romantic sense, not just in the sense of a father, or in the sense of a friend, which is Jesus, or as a counselor, Holy Spirit, but just like as someone who loves me deeply. And so I've struggled with that off and on because I'll have periods where I will, right? I will have that mentality. I will move that way. And then I'll have other periods where it feels like the feelings are too intense. Like I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to pray. I just want to be with someone. And so I as soon as it feels like there's someone who fits that mold or who is interested in me at that time, it's almost like I jump ship, and that's where I head to. That's where all of my attention goes. And so it's been like that for a long time, and I've known this about myself uh, for a long time. I was trying to think of the year, but I don't know what the year is. But this year is the year where I had to really make the decision. And I got to make the decision now. It's not like we're going to make this a resolution thing. We're going to wait till January to, make this official. It is I cannot take this with me into the next year and beyond. And so it's been a few things this year that have all been speaking to this idea of being a bride. And so when I first even thought about it, I rejected it immediately. Immediately. And not because I didn't see myself getting married, but because I didn't see who that would be with. Like with who? Who is this guy? And it was funny because as I'm thinking about that even now, it's like the focus is still wrong. It's still off. I'm still thinking that I need to do this for a man. And it is God beckoning me, calling me to him. And this does not mean that it is not also going to be a physical husband, because that is part of the anxiety that I feel sometimes around it. Is like I know that it is preparation for a physical marriage to be a bride physically, but first and foremost, I already have the it is required of me to learn what that looks like to be a bride now, to be prepared now. So there's been a few things that have happened throughout the year that have just kept on putting it back in my face. So the first thing that happened is so funny because it's not related to like relationships or marriages at all. So the first time that this happened, it's the first instance, there was I was doing a walking challenge. So it was 31 days of walking, and it was it was a book by a friend who I will actually tag her. I'll tag the book down below because the walking journal is excellent. And so what it does is it encourages you to invite God with you on your walks, which is so unique because we think about walking in terms of just being physically healthy, not realizing that there are so many different things that God wants us to get in maybe like unexpected ways. So, basically the gist of it is to not box God into one space. He does not have to speak to you in one way. He can speak to you however he wants to. And he needs to be able to do that because of how we are wired. We won't always get it the same way. So that's the case for me. So I started this walk, and the thing that you're supposed to do on this walk, the first day, is to ask God, what am I supposed to get from this walk? What am I supposed to get from this challenge? What am I supposed to be hearing from you? Just like invite him in, ask him questions, converse with him, and allow him to speak to you while you're doing these walks. And so when I started the walk, the challenge, the thing that he told me was that I am teaching you how to be committed because you are going to be a bride. You are going to be a wife. And so when he said that, I was like, what? Commitments? I don't know about that. I don't know about that one. And it felt so off because it's like, are you sure? Like, don't you mean like you're teaching me how to be healthy? Like teaching me how to stay committed to working out? No, it was not even closely related to working out. It was all about commitment, being consistent, not giving up when it gets hard or when it feels like it is not working out. Commitment. So that whole walk that whole challenge was really about reaching my heart because God had to take me on a walk in order to get me to listen to him in this particular area. And so that was the first instance. And so I shared that with my friends, with my sisters, and, they were just like, they really were, tag teaming me with the Holy Spirit on that one and agreeing and adding even more to it and saying that and reinforcing the idea that I was going to be that, that God wants to be, he wants to show me love and he wants to be the lover of my soul. And so even saying that, like I have to practice even saying the lover of my soul because that feels so like intimate and I know that he can be, but it's like, I have to like experience it and open myself up to it. And it's like, ooh, that is weird. It's weird, y'all. So that was the first instance. The second thing that happened that I had to do is that I had to start eliminating certain men from my life. And so I had friendships. I had situationship like things. People guys that I was hopeful it would work out with. I had to cut them off. And I had to be very matter of fact with it. And I had to really make sure that it was closed. Like I couldn't leave any space for it to be misconstrued. And I knew what that was about. And so it was so that I could be open to love, but not just from a man, but from God. And I had to make sure that I didn't have a bunch of other alternatives for when I felt like I needed someone. Because that is honestly, that is usually what happens to people when they're cheating. Like, let's keep it real. Like when people when they end up in situations where they have cheated on someone, it is because the door was left open, the avenue was left open for them to engage with a person who's like filling a space that wasn't being filled, or a need that wasn't being met. That's like the at its core, it's what it is. And so I knew that that was something else that I had to learn, and I had to practice before. I mean, regardless of whether or not there was someone I was dating or not, I want to make sure that I am not keeping people around to like soothe me or to fill that space that is reserved for God. And so that was another thing that happened, and that was probably the toughest part of the whole process, because that's what I was used to doing. Like, it's always, even if it wasn't multiple, it was always someone, you know, it was always somebody. And so that was tough, 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 tough. And I was only really able to do it like with accountability, like telling people, this is what I got to do. Okay, I'm deleting this number in front of you, literally in front of my friends. Like, I had to show them, like, this is what I'm doing. Okay, you see it, contact is cut. And so that was the next thing that happened. So here recently, this is what I wanted to show y'all. So when, actually, no, let me move in order. Okay, so here's the next thing. This is the bouquet. I caught this at my friend's wedding. She got married in November, and it was a beautiful wedding. It was just really beautiful. It just really felt like love. And I know, like, most weddings are like that, I guess, but I don't know. There's just something about knowing them from the very beginning, like their relationship from the very beginning, and seeing how it all worked out. It just made the whole night something different. And so my friend, she goes and she's getting ready to toss the bouquet. And I honestly have forgot, like, this was a whole thing in the weddings. I completely forgot. And so my usually what I'll do, because I don't want to participate, is that I'll just like sit off to the side and watch everybody else like go for it, and kind of like clown them, like, oh, look at them, they thirsty, like, you know, making them feel bad. They wouldn't hear me, but talking about them and, you know, looking at them a certain way because they are all excited to catch the bouquet, right, and be married. And so this time around, I didn't approach it with that mentality, because I do want to be married. So I'm going to participate, you know, like I'm gonna try. So she tosses the bouquet the first time, and I promise you, I'm gonna ask her one day. I felt like she looked at me so that she could make sure she tossed it in the right direction. Like, I think that she knew she was throwing it at me. And so at least that's what, in my heart, that's what I feel. Whether that's what happened or not, that's how I interpret the events. So she's like looking around, and so she goes back around and she tosses the bouquet. And so she tosses it like too short, I think. And so it nobody could really reach it. And so we toss it back to her. And so she does it again. So, you know, she does a little, you know, bounce or whatever. She tosses it. And like, as it's coming, I feel like it literally was just like, and it lands in my hand, but it falls. And so I was like, oh no. I'll go down and I'll pick it up. And I'm like, all right, now, me. It's me. And so I felt like that night was just like another one of those moments where it's like, okay, I see what we're doing here. I hear you. And so that was it was important to me. It meant a lot to me. And not for the in the superstitious sense, but just like it is in a confirmation, in a confirming way. Like, no, this is what I told you. This is what we're doing. This is where we are. So the next thing that happened, and this was a few weeks ago, I I drew this. So I'm gonna show it to y'all. And the thing that's so interesting about, there it goes. So the thing that is so interesting about me drawing anything is that I only really have like, I only draw when I feel led to draw. I don't draw otherwise. Like it has to really be a, this is in my head and I can't shake it. I gotta put it down on paper. And so I kept feeling like, okay, draw your wedding dress. And I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. Like for what? Like when is that happening? I'm drawing this dress for what, an imaginary wedding? Like, I didn't really get why that was even like what I should be thinking about right now. And so uh I couldn't it was a few days and I could not stop like having this thought like you need to draw this. And so I started researching different dresses and I started watching Say Yes to the Dress Again. Y'all remember that show? I love that show. Uh, I started watching Say Yes to the Dress Again, and I was like finding myself getting like excited about the details of it, of the idea of being a bride. And so and the bride specifically, not just a wife but like a bride, like the things that we are maybe told to not focus on because they're not as important as, after you say I do, which I totally agree with and I understand. But the thing that's so cool about the wedding dress, especially when you watch the show, is that it doesn't become real to them until they get the dress. Like if you ever seen like, and they can be in, they could have come into the, they could come into the store, into Kleinfeld. That's the store that they were at for Say Yes to Dress. They could go into Kleinfeld completely like defeated and just like over the whole process of buying a dress, and maybe they've been looking for weeks or for months and they just cannot find the dress that they love. And they come into the shop, they find the dress, they find like the dress, their dress, and you see something like switch. They're like, oh wait, I'm gonna get married, right? And then when they put that veil on, it's a done deal. It's a done deal. Like everyone's crying now. Like everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's really happening. And so I think that for me, that is why I drew it. So instead of going in and trying on dresses for a wedding that is not planned yet, I drew the dress and I drew it with me like in it. And that was almost like a way of saying like, this is real, this is happening. And so after drawing it, I just kind of looked at it for a second and I was like, man, that's a wedding dress. And that's me in it. Even like down to the locks and the hairstyle. Now the only thing I have not drawn yet is the veil and baby steps, y'all. Baby steps. It's not done. I want to add like some jewels and some fabric to it and just really be intentional with it because I feel like it is prophetic. So yeah, so I have the dress here and I know that there's going to be more to it because when I did my birthday dress, that was the last time I drew clothes. So when I drew my birthday dress, I knew that my birthday dress was about, I wish that I had it right now, but I knew that my birthday, oh, I do have it. So here's my birthday dress. This is the last thing that I drew. And so, and I knew that my birthday dress, down to like the color and the style, was all about certain things. So, the words that I got were sexy and accepting, being feminine, That's why the shape is what it is. The color pink is bold. It represents optimism, loving, kind, sensitive, strong, nurturing, um, and standing out from the crowd. If you ever seen someone, especially in hot pink, you are going to look at them. Like there's no way somebody's going to walk by you in hot pink and you're not going to look at them. It just commands attention. And so this dress in particular, I knew. I mean, this dress I knew meant something. So I know that the wedding dress is going to as well. And so that was the next thing that came to me that has been confirming this whole idea. So now we are here to today, and what what I got today. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna read this. I think I grabbed the wrong journal though. Oh, here it is. So here here is the next thing. So don't know how much of this I have to share, but I do know that one of the questions that came up for me today is that why does my relationship with God feel like a consolation prize? And when I had that question, it kind of like pricked me a little bit because that's a really good question. Why does it feel like a consolation prize? Like this didn't work out, so I guess I'm gonna go back to God. Or this guy wasn't who I thought he was going to be, so let me go ahead and go back to God. And the enthusiasm, the joy, and just even like the reverence for who he is not there when it comes to the romantic side of things, the romance. And so I I thought that was a really good question. And so I didn't try attempt to answer it right now or even in the moment when I wrote it. But I as I was thinking about it and kind of like sat with it, I was led to go to songs of Song of Songs. And if y'all know about that book, you know. Okay. It gets steamy. And so I've never actually I think I've maybe read parts of it, but I've never really like gone into it for real. And so anyway, it came to mind because I had another question. And the question was, what do I need from God today as my lover? And so there was a whole list of things that I put down, but the gist of it was that I needed reassurance. That is what I felt like I was missing. That's what I was craving. And so I wanted to go to God with that first. Before I go to anybody else or anything else, I wanted to go to him with it first. And so when I did that, there was two scriptures that stood out as I was reading chapter one. And so the first one is how beautiful you are, my darling. How very beautiful your eyes are doves. And so that was the first. That's 1 and 15. And then the second one is, my dearest one, let me tell you how I see you. You are so thrilling to me. To gaze upon you is like looking at one of Pharaoh's finest horses, a strong, regal steed pulling his royal chariot. And so I thought that those were they're so sweet. And um it just speaks so highly to how he sees me, how God sees me. And it was cool because even as I was reading it, it talks about how words really can build you up, and how they can, yeah, how they can build you up. How hearing good things about yourself really can do a lot for you. And so I thought that that was really, it was a really, it was a perfect way to reassure me in the way that I needed it in that moment. And so I thought that definitely was like a moment and like a step in the right direction. And it also gave me opportunity to see what it's going to look like in practice, to continue to ask that question, what do I need? And make that a God thing before I turn to anyone or anything else. And that leads me to, it reminded me of one last thing, which is not necessarily related to uh, the topic of being a bride, but it is relevant to life. I don't even know how to describe it otherwise, but it's relevant. Okay, so the thing that I got was our tendency to turn to coping mechanisms, and how turning to them can lead to addiction. And so I was looking at the ones that are relevant to me. It may be relevant to you too, but I'm talking about myself, unless I'm talking about you too. So they were people, exercise, which is good and we should do it. But when we turn to it as our way to cope, um, it can turn into an addiction. That is how it turned into an addiction. Um, Eating, I think that's self-explanatory. Watching TV and sleeping, and it all creates a dependence because it's temporary. And when it's temporary, you have to keep doing it to feel good again, which is literally what an addiction is. And so I thought about how, for me in this instance, I would use certain relationships to cope, and that would be my first resort. And while people are important and they're necessary, relationships are necessary. The idea here is that the most relationships should be the priority. And so it is important for me to continuously learn to trust God with this part of me, and keep giving this part of myself to him, so that I can have a healthy dependence on him, and I can have healthier relationships with others, and just be better for myself. And so that is that is it. That is it. So if you're watching this and you thought that I was going to be announcing an engagement, okay, I didn't put this on my. I thought I put this on my ring finger, but I didn't. I'm not announcing an engagement, um, but I am telling you that I believe that this is not just for me, but it's for many of us who God is calling us back to Him in a way that's different than what we may have been doing before, and in a way that's very scary, and we probably don't want to do it, because I get that too. But it's because ultimately He knows that it is what we need, and when we can trust Him with it, we will see for ourselves just how good it is. So yes, that's it for tonight. I believe that with me sharing this, especially with how I felt about the topic, that I this is freedom for me. Like, I don't have to be ashamed to say that this is what I want, that I want to be married. I don't have to be ashamed of the choices that I made in past relationships. I don't have to walk on eggshells because I'm dating someone or talking to somebody who um, is not treating me well, because that was a thing too. I don't have to worry about none of that. I'm free, and it's not coming with me into 2023. Oh, that rhymes. I'm free, and it's not coming with me into 2023. So thank you all for coming and hanging out with me, and everybody that's watching the replay. I will see you all tomorrow for day girl, oh goodness. I don't know what day it is. I really will. One day I'm gonna remember what day I'm on. Either way, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.